one. Ready?
No, I go first. 1, 2, 3, clap. Did you forget to clap, or was the delay that long?
Do it again. This is going in.
1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap.
Am I supposed to clap when you say clap?
Yes.
Or am I supposed to clap when you actually clap?
I clap when I say clap. It happens at the same time.
Not on my screen, it doesn't.
Now what?
I don't know. So, a friend of mine, friends of ours, we were hanging out with them the other night. We're having like an adult night. They're the same like life stages we are. They have a little kid, a toddler, and it was nice. Like they got a babysitter, we got a babysitter. Went to a nice fancy place for dinner. It was like South America, like Peruvian, Amazonian cuisine. It was really good. It was really nice.
Yes.
And as the evening went on, we went to a different venue. And then the whole accents thing came about. And did you watch PBS as a kid?
Almost exclusively.
Right? Okay, cool. So do you remember like the cooking shows?
Very much.
All right. Do you remember Yen Can Cook?
Yen Can Cook. Yeah.
Right?
A little bit.
Right?
A little bit.
Okay.
A
So
little bit.
my Hong Kong accent, right? So he speak Cantonese, and this is how he talk. Anyway, I did that
Very
accent.
good.
If Yan can cook, so can you. Jiajian. And so I did that for them, and they're fucking rolling out of their chairs laughing at this shit, and they loved it. And it just made me think back to like all those times where like I glommed onto television, like elements from TV and like accents. Like I remember British sitcoms on WLIW, right? Like Are You Being Served and The British Empire, The Thin Blue Line, all that stuff. And like doing British accents just for fun and having that be a part of like certain theater performances I did in like in high school and stuff like that. And yeah, I was curious about your experiences with television and public television and what you remember and what you watched.
I watched similar programs. I was very interested in the cooking shows in particular. The British sitcoms also, but not quite as many. Are You Being Served, Faulty Towers, and one other whose name escapes me at the moment.
Waiting for God?
A little bit of Waiting for God, but that was...
Red Dwarf?
No.
Blackadder?
No. But I did watch Blackadder. That's not the one I'm thinking of.
Grace and Favor?
No. It's more in line with Are You Being Served. It's
Grace and Favor.
No, maybe it was
That was
Grace.
a sequel.
Maybe it was Grace and Favor. No, it was concurrent. In any case, so there were those shows. No, I did, to be sure, I did not watch as much television as it appears that you watched, but I did watch those shows.
That's a ridiculous amount.
And I watched BBS NewsHour as a child, which was
really,
you know, a lot of Nature and Nova and Marty Stouffer's Wild America. You know, all those kinds of shows. I was very...
Enjoy Our Wild America.
Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting, New Yankee Workshop, This Old House. What was the one? It was a wood turning show in particular. I can't quite remember the name of the show, but it was like an old dude in suspenders with a funny hat, and he just turned spindles, and it was glorious. And to this day, I could watch wood turning nonstop. Like there's just something magical about seeing the transition between not round and round across the length of the piece. It's magical. Yeah. So my slant may have been a bit more of the dry educational documentarian style.
My my kid watches Sesame Street, but he watches modern Sesame Street. HBO Max has it, but they only have select seasons. They have like seasons 1 through 7, and I didn't realize that Sesame Street started in the late '60s.
I thought it was 70s. Okay.
I thought so too. Apparently, they started in the late '60s. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Not 100%, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, when I, you just
And-
reminded me of something. So for sure, Mr. Rogers, Sesame
Yeah.
Street, Reading Rainbow,
Yeah.
and then as I got older, Ghost Rider, I remember being
Yep.
a show that I liked a lot. And there were a couple of others that are escaping me now. I haven't thought about
Magic
Ghost
School
Rider.
Bus?
Magic School Bus, yeah, at some point.
Arthur. Hey,
A little
Arthur.
bit, yeah. I remember, I roughly remember being at a certain age, like where like that would be on after something, and I wouldn't necessarily watch it all the time. Sometimes I would, and I was like already old enough that I didn't care about Arthur. Yeah, the Magic School Bus and Arthur were like okay, yeah.
So he's watching newer Sesame Street, and apparently there are 52 seasons of Sesame Street. So I guess you could do the math and figure out,
78.
2022 minus 52.
No, I'm 68. Right?
So
Or 70. 70. 1970.
all right.
1970. Something you need to know about me.
Yeah.
The reason why that was so hard for me is because I'm not entirely certain it's 2022. I'm very bad with dates. Very, very bad with dates. And
Well,
I have markers of when things occur, and I stop remembering. At a certain point, date changes. So, for instance, when I met my girlfriend, she had been a nurse for 12 years. Well, she has now been a nurse for 17 years. But if you just ask me off the cuff and I don't think about it, yeah, she's been a nurse for 12 years. 5 years later, I have not updated my calendar. So anyway, modern Sesame Street.
that's really interesting.
It's a bit of an issue sometimes, but overall it's fine. Yeah.
I walk into rooms I don't remember why I walked into
Oh.
them, and then I have to go back, and then I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's the reason why I walked into it.
It's kind of like walking over a threshold or through a doorway immediately erases memory.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
What were we talking about?
the new Sesame Street, the format is different. It's way more repetitious than the old Sesame Street used to be. First of all, the episodes are much shorter. Back in the day, when we were kids in the 80s, the episodes were like an hour. Around about, like 40-something minutes.
They were?
An episode. Yeah, 40 to 50 minutes an episode.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Yep. Long episodes. And very varied content throughout. I mean, always similar kinds of stuff. Like you'd have cartoons maybe intermixed with like puppet skits, and then guests would come on, all that kind of stuff. But each one was different. And now they have these repeating segments every time, and the show follows this exact same format over and over again. And I'm wondering if that's because of funding, they just don't have the money to do the same kind of stuff that they used to do, or if it's because they found out that like this kind of repetition reinforces learning in children or something like that. I don't know.
Is the Sesame Street, and look, I to be sure, I remember like this much of Sesame Street. Like I can't remember the format or the like. I recall it being much shorter than that, and I don't remember cartoons. But my expectation is that when you and I were watching Sesame Street, it was Sesame Street on PBS, broadcast for the world to see as it existed one time, period. I would suspect now that whatever new Sesame Street is probably a multi-varied age group specific Sesame Street. No?
They have spin-offs. They have like Sesame Street Friends, which is a different thing. But there's Sesame Street. Sesame Street, Sesame Street, Sesame Street. Plain old.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you also got to remember, too, the Sesame Street that we watched was effectively, created by comedians and hippies.
Yes.
So
yes, and it shows.
Oh, yeah.
Like the when you watch the older seasons, like the humor and the comedy that was in them. The thing that bothers me is I listen to the characters now. And obviously their former puppeteers are dead. So their voices are different,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like the Count and the Grouch and Big Bird. Oh my God, especially Big Bird. They're not. It grates on me. It actually bothers me.
Are they
It really
close
does. It
enough
gets to
that
me.
it's just wrong, or like are they totally different?
Some of them are totally different.
Really?
Some of them try. Like some of them attempt to get close, but like a lot of them are just like, nope, we'll just do a silly voice for this one. And it's like, dude, you're an imposter. Get the fuck off the screen. You're not Big Bird. I remember Big Bird. He and I were friends. I don't know who the fuck you are.
We're friends. I don't know that I could recall Big Bird. I bet you if I heard the new one, I would be like, oh yeah, that's weird. But I don't know that I recall his voice. Who was the one that didn't talk at all? Is that Snuffleupagus? No, he did talk.
Snuffy talked for sure.
Bird. Yeah.
Snuffy talked for
Yeah.
sure.
I know a guy I worked with years ago that I nicknamed Snuffleupagus because of his demeanor. He was always just like, he was kind of like Eeyore. Yeah. Yeah. It was always, everything was always just,
Hello.
hey, what are we going to do?
Really?
What are we going to do today? We're going to work. Fuckface. That's what we're going to do. Yeah. Just like we did yesterday and just like we will tomorrow.
The same thing we do every night, Pinky.
Yeah.
Try to take over the world.
Ken Burns documentaries. Watched a good bit of those. Probably should rewatch those. I suspect watching some of those documentaries at the age of like 10 probably didn't have the same impact as it would as a 42-year-old. Yeah. I spent probably more time watching programming that was either inappropriate or maybe inappropriate is not the right word. Age inappropriate as far as content was concerned.
You're an old soul?
Am I what now?
You were an old soul?
Sure.
You're watching much more mature content than your age would suggest.
I suppose. I enjoyed that sort of stuff, so I would sit and I'd watch it. Yeah.
Would you like watch 60 Minutes or
Yeah.
2020?
Yeah. Yeah, I would actually. Yeah. The Jim Lehrer News Hour, which was, so my grandfather, the fascinating thing about my grandfather was that he was one of the more caring, compassionate, open-minded humans that I could remember in my life. Staunch Republican. Loved Rush Limbaugh. Fascinating contrast. So he would watch some of these more conservative talk shows, and I'd watch them along with him. And I don't know exactly how he got his political positions, but they were very different than his outwardly stated version of himself. But yeah, I would watch those news programs.
I always thought it was interesting how our parents were immigrants, and yet they're both very like conservative about immigration. Do you know what I mean? And they're not unique in that regard either. Like DeSantis, right? How he won Florida again, and he got a lot of the Latin American vote, right?
Well,
and his policy on illegal immigration and stuff like that. Like, it's interesting how many people who absolutely would have fit the bill of being an illegal alien, right? Like a non-trivial percentage of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a non-trivial percentage of them voted Republican, voted for him. So there's this interesting contrast. And I remember...
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
He explained it once.
I need to fix that. Or we need to fix that.
What?
Are you suggesting that in the election in Florida that Ron DeSantis was voted for by illegal aliens?
I mean, the polling evidence suggests that...
But non-citizens cannot vote.
People who later became naturalized.
Okay.
Right?
So,
people who managed to become naturalized.
Citizens.
Yeah, they are now, but when they first came here...
No one's a citizen when they first come here. So
No. Some people, let's go a step further. Some people come here and they're not even like being kept track of. Or if they are, they skip out on whatever visas they have and they let them expire and they don't leave. Like that kind of shit.
but,
all right?
but those people can't vote. Only citizens can vote.
But if they live here long enough, there are ways for them to eventually get naturalized, even though technically they should have been deported.
I mean, so okay, let's say that's true.
Marriage.
Let's say that's true. Let's say our immigration system is sufficiently reasonable that could even happen. They're citizens now.
Okay, yeah, now they are. But they certainly were guilty of doing illegal immigration type stuff early on in their tenure in the United States.
Okay.
Before they found the other avenues that led them to naturalization.
Okay.
And yet they vote against the interests of other people who would do the same stuff that they did to get over here.
Yeah. I don't believe any of the things that you're saying as them being statistically true, because but your point is true that people will quite often get in and go, that's it, shut it down, I'm here now.
Well, the way our dad explained it to me, because I once confronted him with this, and he said, yeah, when we came to the States,
we were better.
Like ultimately some version of that.
Right?
The idea was that there was a desire to assimilate that they embraced, right?
This is yeah.
Whereas they feel that a lot of current immigrants don't desire to assimilate into
our
American, whatever the hell American culture is.
Tell me about our great aunt's ability to speak English and her desire to assimilate. How'd she do?
I mean, our great aunt might as well have been a suitcase.
Just another immigrant not assimilating.
She was effectively human baggage. All right. It would have been cruel to leave her behind, but she certainly was not the one leading the charge on getting over to the U.S.
So the argument,
she came along for the ride.
So the argument that you're that I don't know that you're making this argument, but what you're saying is that those people who come to the United States and either do so illegally or do so through great struggle and difficulty, come here and are effectively incapable of assimilating because they're not strong enough to try, or they're not interested to try.
I have nothing but respect for people who come over here legally or illegally, who want nothing more than to become permanent residents, to assimilate, to become part of American culture, to embrace entrepreneurship, to embrace all these things that are not written down, that are unofficial, and that frankly are very subjective in terms of what American identity means. So admittedly, like, I don't have a problem with those people. But I would say that
what
there
people
are
do you
others.
Have a problem with?
I actually would say that I have a problem with it's hard, because on the one hand, it's unsympathetic to point at enclaves, cultural enclaves in the U.S. and say, you guys are just being around each other and you're not trying. Because
you
it's
need
hard,
more white
right?
people
It's
in your
hard.
community so that way you'll assimilate.
It's not an easy thing to do. You don't speak the language, right? You don't know the rules. You don't know the customs. You're going to gravitate towards other people in your community who are like you because it's safe. It's easier. You can get along.
Have you ever spent any time in Astoria, Queens?
A little bit.
I used to spend a lot of time in Astoria. A good stretch of Steinway Street is either Greek or Middle Eastern, right? Let's just call it, roughly speaking, Middle Eastern. Some Lebanese, some Egyptian, so on and so forth. I would guess that like an eighth of those humans who have been living and working in the United States, legally or otherwise, for many, many years, operating businesses. I don't speak a lick of fucking English. I used to go to this one shisha place owned by a Lebanese family. Well, I'll take that back. Apparently owned by a Lebanese family. Because I don't know to what degree there was the family involved, because it was only men. It was a Lebanese guy, and the only way that we could communicate, he and I, was through his French and my broken French. Because I didn't know Arabic, and he didn't know English. And he had been in the country for like 15 years, operating a business in Queens, New York. Those fucking Arabs.
There was a friend of our family who lived out in central Long Island. And he was from Egypt. And Dad knew him. I think he met him in the States. He was a cab driver.
You don't say.
They became friends. Mm-hmm. And they had there was like shared same place and time, in that part of the world. So there's a lot of shared stories about struggle and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I remember like his kids and me, we used to play together when we would go over there and have barbecues and stuff like that. And he had 3 kids, an elder son, a middle daughter, and a younger son. His wife is Puerto Rican. He is Muslim. His wife did not convert to Islam. She's Catholic. And his children were raised Muslim. And to hear my dad tell it, because I was too young to interrogate the man about these types of things, but to hear my dad tell it, this guy loved the U.S., loved the freedom that it offered relative to the place that he came from. And something happened. When the middle daughter came of age, the father was adamant that she get married off. And she was very smart and really capable and ambitious. And she could have easily gone on to do other things and not go down that life path. And I remember we were still friends with her around the time this was happening. And she used to send me letters. And there was a definite... This was not something that was part of her plan.
To be married off, you mean?
Right.
Sure.
And...
You don't say.
And we stopped seeing them. And my dad said, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's a hypocrite. Because he claims that he loves this country. And yet he pulls the same kind of backwards shit from those fucking third world countries that he came from on his own children. That's the kind of immigrant I don't like.
Okay, so, fair enough. I like that. I like that's the kind of immigrant I don't like. That's fair.
So if you're that kind of immigrant, fuck you.
Well,
if that's not you, then fucking God bless you. Stay here and do your thing and
live long and prosper.
So
just so we're clear here, if you are an immigrant and a hypocrite, not a good immigrant.
Well,
just right. That's what we're getting at.
Well, not just that. I'll go one step further and say, if the only reason why you're coming here is to find a safe place to practice your shitty ideas, because where you come from is
shitty,
unsafe,
shitty, yeah,
right,
guy,
then
you can stop yourself. The place is literally founded on coming here to practice shitty ideas. I mean, it's literally the reason why people started coming here and staying here. What do you mean, no?
It's not. The reason they started coming here and staying here was so that they could practice better ideas than the places.
Well, how do you figure? You're telling me that the Salem witch trials that were created by the puritanical idiots in the United States, that was better than the witch trials going on in England at the same time? Is that better? We're idiots, guy. This entire country exists. You know how Australia was the penal colony and all the criminals went to Australia, and that's the kind of the joke of Australia. Australia was founded by criminals, right? And they pushed out the Aboriginals to make room for the white criminals from Europe, right? Mm-hmm. Same shit, except we are not the criminals. We're the idiots. This whole country is founded on believing stupid shit in a safer environment.
So how did we come up with something as truly good, if only on paper, as the Constitution?
I mean, because
or the Declaration
not all of us are complete idiots. There are at least some of us who aren't complete idiots. I mean, just the other day, we launched a goddamn fucking rocket to the moon again. Hey, took us long enough. That's amazing. Those people aren't so much idiots. You and I? Who knows? We didn't launch any rockets.
Maybe it's only on paper. But I believe in that land of opportunity idea.
Sure.
Right? That's a nice idea.
Yes.
That certainly was a clarion call for many of the waves of immigration that took place.
And still is.
In the 1900s and still today.
Throughout. Right? Absolutely. And still is.
But is the opportunity that is available here strictly a financial opportunity? Because this country was founded on Western ideals based in English common law of equality and sovereignty of the individual, right? I'm not saying that we do a good job of embracing those ideas necessarily, but that's the goal, all right? The goal isn't a shelter from the storm so that you can be a dickhead here.
Sure is.
There are plenty of people born here who are complete pieces of shit here.
And there are plenty of people that come here and were pieces of shit when they left and are pieces of shit when they're here.
Right.
As is the case.
Poor, tired, and huddled is not a bad thing. And the reason it's not a bad thing is because they are yearning to breathe free.
Yeah.
Okay? But when you say that you are yearning to breathe free, that comes with stipulations. Yearning to breathe free means that you embrace breathing free.
Okay.
It means that...
I'm waiting for you to make your point. It means that
you're not marrying off your daughters or hating gay people for being gay or thinking that other immigrants shouldn't be coming to this country.
So freedom goes freedom goes, and I was about to say,
feeling that the women that are in your neighborhood are second-class citizens and they should all wear complete burqas from head to toe. I don't care that it's religious freedom. I get it. You have the right to do
I was
going to
say freedom goes both ways, but let's just do it. Freedom goes every way, right? So yearning to breathe free comes with, the desire to breathe free, but also people born here, just the same as people who came here as immigrants, either newly or long ago, are equally free to be idiots in every direction that they damn well please, good, bad, or indifferent. This is the crux of the ignorance that we deal with on a daily basis.
So
there's no limits on how dumb you get to be.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So here's my question.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Actually, let me ask you this question first. Can the people who you believe are reasonable be free if the people who you believe are unreasonable cannot be free? Shouldn't everybody be able to be as free as they want for everybody to be able to be free? Or is it selective freedom you're looking for? Is there some...
I'm looking for my personal definition of progress.
Okay, cool. You're free to
At
do
least I'm
so.
being honest,
You
right?
are free to find that definition.
Okay, but see, here's the problem, right? Idiocracy is not just a comedy movie, right?
No, it's our society.
It's an actual possibility, right? So when you have absolute freedom, right? When you have absolute freedom, then a potential future outcome for a society is idiocracy, right? So if you want to avert that future or dystopian futures like it, then what do? How do you, because, yeah, what do you do?
What do? You create a pluralistic, multicultural society with a set of laws and requirements that everybody is at least most reasonably able to abide by, and when they are not, they are punished under the law and only the law. And sometimes that will
But the
go,
law doesn't punish you for being an idiot.
sometimes that will, no, certainly not. No, sometimes it does. But that doesn't always work because you've said it before, you can't make a law for every circumstance. You certainly can't. So you have to make a law that is sufficiently broad and also sufficiently narrow that it doesn't impugn too much, but also can catch a little bit of extra dumb. And the goal is that instead of getting angry with one another for being hypocrites or not speaking a language or being dumb or believing stupid shit, instead of that, we try our damnedest to respect and cooperate with the idiots who we live with. That's what we're trying to do. It's fucking weird and hard.
Every day for this past week, I have been taking my son to daycare. His mother is out on travel. She's actually coming back, but she was out on work travel.
I like the way you said that.
Well, she's coming back tonight.
But she's coming back.
Yes, obviously she's coming back. That's it. Mom's gone. We're done. I'm a single dad now. Yeah. So she's coming back tonight. And the commute in this area is infuriating.
Okay.
Traffic is not my problem.
Okay.
If it's bumper to bumper, it is what it is. It's bumper to bumper.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Density, like volume, can choke streets. I get that. Okay. Some roadways just aren't meant to handle how many thousands of people are on them in the morning at the same time.
Sure.
I get it. That's not what gets me. When the traffic is the result of stupid, that's what bothers me. Right? So all these idiots that I live around who create this self-fulfilling prophecy of traffic, and they do so because they don't know how to merge, they don't know how to make turns properly by going into the intersection and stuff like that. They are extremely scared of any vehicle that's even slightly creeping out into the roadway. They don't just go around it. They come to a stop and wait for it to do its this very furtive type of driving behavior. All of this exacerbates a traffic situation that wouldn't necessarily have to exist otherwise. Sure. There would still be heavy flow, but it would move, and we would all get where we're going that much.
Sure. So these people that you're describing are like the tampons of traffic.
Well, I would say that they're the period of traffic.
Well, no, the traffic the traffic is the period, the flow.
Okay.
And so they're just getting in the way of the flow. You see what I did there?
I was thinking of them as a bloody discharge.
This episode's description is two white guys talk about menstruation.
Two white guys talk about traffic. All right. So yeah. So they block the flow, right? And these idiots that I'm supposed to live around. So here's the thing. I am a very competent driver.
Good job, buddy.
All right.
Dad says I'm an excellent driver.
I can navigate deftly
drive in the driveway.
in tight areas. Okay. The people around me, most of them, aren't nearly as competent, or they're not nearly as brazen They're way more timid. Maybe they know how to drive,
Sure.
but they're just more afraid, more cautious, whatever it is, right?
Gotcha.
I find not all, but some of their behavior to be inconsiderate because they are obtrusive. They're in the way. It's not necessarily that they don't know how to do something. It's that they don't care to.
Sure.
Folks on
Perhaps
their cell
both.
phones. Also. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
When you're around a whole bunch of people who are in very small ways saying fuck you, flipping you off in little ways all the time, right?
Yes.
They're doing 10 miles under the
I
speed
get it.
limit.
They're in the left lane
an
when they
area.
shouldn't be in the left lane. They're fucking
All
they
kinds of
triple
shit.
parked, whatever. I get
All
it.
of
Yeah,
it.
I'm with you.
Right? It is exceedingly difficult to extend an olive branch to these people and say, I want to work well with you. And the reason it's difficult is because I have two options when I consider the source for their poor behavior. Either they are unaware of their impact on others, myself and other people behind me, even behind them, whatever. Or they don't care. They're intentionally doing what they're doing. So either, generally speaking, either they're an idiot.
They're dumb or they're malicious.
Or they're an asshole.
This is actually one of my major questions in life. Dumb or malicious?
Right.
Which one?
Right?
Which
Okay.
one are you today? Are you a dumb person or are you malicious? Because you can't.
Right.
You got to be one of those.
So maybe I hold other people, generally speaking, in too high a regard.
No, it
because
doesn't
my
sound like
natural
that's the case.
tendency, my natural tendency is to assume malicious as opposed to assuming that they're stupid. Because in my mind, it is so difficult to imagine a circumstance or a frame of mind that leaves someone so fucking clueless about their surroundings that the reason why they're fucking up is because they're just absent-minded and they're not thinking, as opposed to the alternative.
The equally
which is
ridiculous scenario that they would be so malicious that they would actively block traffic just to fuck with you.
See, no, not to fuck with me. They actively block traffic because they don't care about the other people behind them because their priorities matter more. So if
That's
if it's them texting on their phone, right? They're not doing it absentmindedly thinking, "Oh, no one's behind me so I can text." No. They're saying, "I don't care if people are behind me. I'm going to text and slow down anyway."
I would suspect it's somewhere in the middle, actually, where it's more of just a lack of consciousness. They're not even considering that there could be somebody behind them. And even if there is, what I'm doing is fine because it's what I'm doing. And it shouldn't be impacting anybody else because I can't possibly think that far ahead of my own self.
So that behavior, to me, translates what I don't see the texting and all that stuff, right? What I see when that happens is this.
Okay, let me ask you this.
I see 1,000 different people every day on the road doing this to me.
I have two responses.
Why would I ever want to cooperate with someone who's doing this to me?
Okay, now
I'll go one step further.
Jesus Christ, I have to write this down.
How can I cooperate with someone who is doing this to me?
So, the first question I'll ask you is, do you believe that you are always sufficiently considerate and sufficiently conscious that you could never have been blamed for a situation that you've just described?
No, I don't.
So you are roughly
I
speaking among them.
I screw up. Roughly speaking, among them.
Yes, those that you think are so egregious in their behaviors, since you have perpetrated some of those things yourself, you live amongst them.
However, I'll say this. The frequency with which I perpetrate those errors, and
doesn't
I'm
matter.
very aware of the errors I perpetrate. No, it absolutely matters.
No, it doesn't.
Because if everyone was a clone of me and committed the errors that I make at the same rate that I make them, I would still be encountering way fewer assholes on the road than I currently encounter now.
No, it doesn't matter.
So clearly, even though I make mistakes,
Have you been inconsiderate?
I make far fewer mistakes than the rest of them do.
Have you been inconsiderate to others in the past?
Inconsiderate? No.
No, you've always been perfectly
The
considerate.
mistake, the errors that I make are absent-minded. They're not
Okay.
inconsiderate.
So
Inconsiderate's deliberate.
Okay,
Inconsiderate's I'm intentionally screwing somebody over.
within
I never
within
do
the
that.
realm of dumb or malicious, in this instance,
Yes,
you would be dumb.
I do dumb.
You're dumb.
Sometimes I do
You're
dumb. Absolutely.
Would you be interested in cooperating with the dumbs?
Yes, the dumbs.
Because
yes.
now you're among the dumbs, right? So let's just leave the malicious aside. You're amongst the
Okay.
dumbs. You're one of the dumbs.
I'm amongst the dumbs.
You can communicate and therefore cooperate.
I
with the
think I'm
dumbs.
a very high level amongst. I'm
Still a
thinking
dumb.
I'm the upper crust of the
You're
dumbs.
still a dumb. And if I'm to believe that you have never been actively inconsiderate in your behavior, then okay, fine. But if we're being honest and accurate,
I know. I do not do.
you've
that.
never cut anybody off just to cut them off.
No.
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Okay.
not. That's a shitty thing to do.
I am-
If I cut somebody off, it's because I am absent-minded and unaware.
Okay.
But I've never been like, fuck you, asshole.
Okay.
No,
well, let's
that
be
is
clear
not
here.
me.
I am both a dumb and a malicious.
Oh, okay.
I have done both. So the response to the question of how
Just to be clear, I've cut people off, but I've done it because I wasn't thinking.
Oh,
I
no.
wasn't aware.
So I have actively cut people. I have cut people off so hard that they are still thinking about being cut off to this day. 20 years later, they can't sleep
They
at night.
remember in horror.
They remember how hard they got cut off by that guy. Yeah,
They rock themselves back and forth in the corner.
yeah, yeah. I've done some things. So to your question, how could I cooperate and why would I cooperate with those people? So to answer your question very broadly, why you would want to cooperate with those people? Because cooperating with those people is the only chance you have. How you cooperate with those people, I can't say for sure. There's probably a lot of different ways you can cooperate.
I have a
with
more
those
fundamental
people.
question.
But hold on, let me just get to my
What does
final.
cooperation mean?
Let me get to my final point, and then we can talk about what cooperation means, because that's a much bigger thing. Final point is, in my view of the world, there are three things that you can do to mitigate your circumstances. The first thing, which I think is a requirement regardless of the other two, is acceptance. The understanding that the scenario that you are in is the way of the world. And there is little or nothing you can do to change that world. It's kind of like my rain argument. You're not going to stop the rain. So you should choose to accept the rain. And if you choose to go outside in the rain, you either wear a raincoat or you shut the fuck up and love getting wet. You got to pick one.
Yeah, I have a problem with that.
Okay, well, otherwise you stay inside and you cry about it.
No, I'm an engineer.
You can't stop the rain.
Go
for it.
I believe in the
Maybe one day.
limitless capacity of human ingenuity. There will one day come a day when we will stop the rain.
Okay. So in the meantime, though, nobody can stop the rain today.
But if nobody tries
Okay, but this
to
is
investigate how to stop the rain,
then we'll never get to
then
stop the
it'll
rain.
never happen.
So, but this is the greater point. Actually, you're kind of making it for me. If that's the cooperation perspective. So first, you accept, because there's no point in being upset on the way to the solution. So enjoy yourself. Take it easy. It's going to be fine. You'll be just fine, pal. The second possibility,
You'll be just fine swimming in the sea of mediocrity along with the rest of us.
that is literally where we are. So enjoy it. Otherwise, be angry about it. The second thing you can do is change it. That was going to be the.
That's like saying you're floating in a river of shit. Just be comfortable.
So
Don't be upset about the fact that you're covered in shit all the time.
But you still
just
don't
be like, hey, listen.
No, it's not.
I'm
It's
covered
not
in
about
shit.
not being upset about it. It's accepting it. It's understanding that this is where I am right now, and I can choose to get angry about it, or I can choose to do something about it.
All right.
So
Okay.
you can choose to change it,
All
okay?
right. So what should I do about it?
Or you can fucking leave. These are, in my view of the world, these are the options.
When you say leave, I'm assuming that's a euphemism for suicide.
No. I suppose at the end, at the very worst case, yes. No, I mean, go to a place where does not exist in the same way that it exists where you are. And what you'll find, as I have, having left the East Coast and moved to Colorado, is that all of these problems still exist here. Just in a different magnitude. There's traffic here. it's really not that bad. People here who grew up here complain about it like it's the end of the world. But to me, it's like a fucking carnival ride by comparison. Because like I know how to drive in the right lane and get past all of the people who are sitting in the left lane for some reason. But whatever. So the trick to the acceptance part is learning that getting upset about it isn't necessarily helpful.
Acceptance doesn't mean you feel good about it.
No, not necessarily. It just means It just means that you do not get angry about the circumstances that you're in. Right? There's plenty of things in the world, in my life, that I would like to change. Right? And I can choose to be frustrated that they are the way that they are, or I can simply say, yeah, that's the way that they are. When I get to it, I'll fix it and it'll be done and that'll be great.
All right. So tell me how to fix the assholes around me with traffic.
I don't know that one.
Well, a lot of fucking good you're doing me now.
So did I tell you the story of when I decided to leave New York? Did I tell you like the catalyst?
Yeah, you told me like you were in traffic and like you almost had like an aneurysm.
Yeah, I was freaking the fuck out. I was having that moment of what you just described. Like this fucking guy is over here, that guy is over here. Why are all these people here? This guy's stalled in the right lane. I'm trying to get through the tunnel. I want to just get home. It's a 4-hour fucking drive. It's only 12 miles. What the fuck's what's going on here? I got fucking cigarettes coming out of both fucking sides of my mouth, and I'm listening to 1010 Winds at fucking max volume in a commercial cargo van in the middle of First Avenue trying to get onto the fucking 36th Street tunnel entrance. And I went, what the fuck am I doing? This isn't going to work. And I had the thought, how can I fix this? How can I fix New York City traffic? And I sat there for the better part of 30 seconds and I went, I cannot fix New York City traffic. Mark has no capability to fix New York City traffic.
I wonder if I could actually fix the traffic problem.
I mean, you might, but the simple epiphany that I had was that this was not possible.
Actually,
what's that?
Civic engagement might actually be.
That's how it goes. So in that moment, I understood this was not a problem I was going to fix, and I certainly wasn't going to fix it quickly. Not quickly enough.
So you left.
Well, so no.
So you chose option 3.
The first thing I did was I accepted it. I went, fuck. This is how this goes. If I'm going to commute in and out of Manhattan every fucking day in a commercial vehicle, I'm going to experience this nonsense on a regular basis.
But if you accepted it, then why the move?
Because I still didn't like it.
Okay.
I just grew to accept the circumstances that I was in, and I no longer got angry about it. And then I went, but I still don't want to sit in traffic for 3 or 4 hours a day, so I'm going to find a place where there isn't that. And then I moved.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole mentality, when I got to Colorado and I did sit in traffic, I was like, this is fine. No big deal. No big deal. The nice part about traffic in Colorado is that it exists for such a short time. Like, it's fascinating. Like, I know you don't go to live music a lot or ever, but I have memories of like leaving Nassau Coliseum after a concert and the fucking nonsense that the Meadowbrook Parkway was trying to get out, and like the 45 minutes of exodus just to get out of this place.
Yeah.
And our version of the Nassau Coliseum here in Denver is the Ball Arena, and the Ball Arena is roughly the same size, and it's like fucking smack in the middle of the city pretty much. It's not true. It's like off to the side, but it's like right there. I can be out of my seat at the concert and on the highway doing 65 miles an hour within 6 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of neat. There's a brief period of like, traffic here to get past this point, and then poof, gone.
So having a little kid means that there's other ways in which the broader community is going to impact me as he gets older, right? There's going to be school, there's going to be other things that is going to require me to engage with other elements of society that I would not otherwise normally have engaged.
Mm-hmm. And some of them will be idiots.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's interesting to note what you're saying, because when I think about it right now, I honestly would have to say that, like, yeah, that's the biggest thing is traffic. Like, pretty much everything else about where I live right now, I just really like. There is one other thing. There was emergency road work that had to be done in like the cul-de-sac that I'm adjacent to.
Emergency road work in a cul-de-sac?
Yeah, go figure.
Fuck.
It was like there was groundwater seeping
I was going to
up.
say, it must have been a sinkhole or something.
Well, it wasn't a sinkhole, but there was groundwater coming up through the road, and
Not supposed to.
they had to like repair that.
Right.
I don't know what they did to do it, but they had to repair it. And they repaired it, and then they came back like a month later, and they'd paved over it when they repaired it, but I guess they didn't pave over it well enough or whatever, or what they paved over it was like a temporary pave over, because then they tore it up and paved over it again, this time a little bit better. Okay, fine. But it's a third-party contractor that
Always is.
the county, pays
Right.
to do this.
Always is.
And they get special dispensation from the county to post signs on people's properties, parking signs, so that their trucks can come and do the work they have to do. And that was an annoying sticking point for me, because it was like, oh, by the way, here's this sign. You don't get to use the parking space in front of your house. And in fact, one time the sign was put up in a spot where it's like, you're going to have your driveway blocked, so you're not going to be able to park in front of you. You're not going to be able to use your own driveway to park. But here's the thing. None of that was true. On 3 separate occasions, on 3 separate weeks, they had set up these signs. 2 out of those 3 times, they didn't even show up for the duration for which the signs were active, right? After the first time that they didn't show up, so like the first set of signs was active for like 3 days. It said from this day to this day, don't use this area because we're gonna be here doing this work, right?
Right.
Never happened.
Sure.
There was no bad weather. There was nothing. They just didn't fucking show up. All right.
Truck got a flat tire. Jimmy got the sniffles. Whatever the fuck.
Who knows? After that, I was like, oh, okay, you're unreliable. Fuck you.
Okay.
You're doing this for your convenience, not mine. Even though you're here for us.
I don't think
to fix this
I don't
thing
think
for
that's a
our
good way to
sake.
look at it. Let me stop you. I don't think that it's a good way to look at it as in you're doing this for your convenience and not mine. They're doing it for the reasons that they're doing it in order to be able to have the area to work and for people's safety through the county regulations, etc.
You would think so.
But hold on.
I know that.
No, but hold
that's
on.
what a reasonable person
Hold
would
on.
think.
And them not abiding by their own schedule is not because that they were trying to do it for their own convenience and not yours. That's just a circumstance of the way government contracts work.
Sure.
But okay, carry on.
All right. The next time that they posted the signs, they had posted it such that it was my driveway was going to be impacted. And I realized that posting the sign is really just a wooden stake on my lawn. So I pulled up the wooden stake.
Naturally.
And I moved it further down my lawn, and I put it somewhere else where it wouldn't. Because along with that sign, they hung door tags to let you know the nature of the work that they were going to be doing. It identifies the address. It identifies the type of work that they're going to be doing and from when to when.
Sure.
And some of that's listed on the sign, but not all of it. So in reading the little door tag, I was like, oh, this is for work that's happening all the way down over there. And all they're going to be doing is patching that one piece right over there. And looking at the perimeter that the signs created, they were going to be taking up the entire intersection that was adjacent to this cul-de-sac. It's a huge amount of space. But me, understanding the nature of the work that they were going to be doing, and knowing the kind of equipment that they would need to patch that, I was like, there's no fucking way that they need that many trucks and that much space. That's nuts. It's not a thing.
So did they need that many trucks?
Nope.
Okay. So
They did not. Because the second time they didn't come either. The third time that they did this, they did come for half an hour tops.
Sure.
And there was one truck that took up like 1/10 of the space that they had otherwise carved out with these signs. And there and done.
Okay. So what you're describing to me sounds like the scenario where the local government, your local government, decided that some extraordinary measures need to be taken anytime construction work occurs within a certain radius because of the times that it did and nobody said anything and there was noise and dust and problems and issues and parking. So they said, fuck, in order to do this, we got to make sure everybody knows about it and block off the thing so that way this thing that happened doesn't happen again. That's what my guess is. Now, when we were children, I don't remember how old, I very distinctly recall being in the car with our father. And he was driving down one of the streets on Long Island, and a fire truck, I think, actually an engine, fire engine, the kind that carry the water and the hoses that don't actually do anything. Those guys were driving past us with sirens, and lights and sirens going. And they got a little ahead of us. Cars pulled over, as you do. And the lights and sirens turned off. And then they carried on. And he said they do that on purpose just so they can get through traffic. There's no emergency. And I remember hearing this. I'm going, fuck, wow, that's crazy. And then years later, I became a firefighter. And I learned that this is complete and utter bullshit. No one uses lights and sirens just so they can get through traffic when there's no emergency. But 9 times out of 10, when you get called on an emergency call, there is actually no emergency. And you will find that out sometimes before you get to that emergency. And you shut your shit off and you turn around and you go home. Because there's no point in fucking carrying on just for the theater of the people. Oh, that false alarm? We don't need to go? Good. Flip. Turn it off. And I remember that very distinctly. Like, oh, he rationalized this thing in his brain, has never been in a fire truck, has no fucking idea how this actually works, and now I can see how it works and realize that that's incorrect. So what I'm saying to you is that you have absolutely no fucking idea why those signs were posted and why nobody showed up and why there was only one truck. You're assuming based on pretty good rationale, but you don't actually know what goes on in the world of signage and construction that caused this inconvenience to you. Because for all intent and purposes, we were inconvenienced that day in the car to pull over for a fire truck going to no emergency. Huh, those bastards. You have no fucking clue. You have never worked a day in your life in construction. You have never operated any heavy machinery while fixing a road. And you do not work in local government such that you know why signs are posted in the way that they are. So I say to you, sir, be an empiricist, not a rationalist.
And how? So what? I have to sign up with a construction company and learn.
I mean, if you really want to know how it goes, yeah. Or you could just go, fucking signs. Fuck, I'll be fine.
Well, regardless of whether or not the individuals who posted those signs did so reasonably in accordance with whatever rules and regulations they have, what I learned was I can move them
without consequence,
without issue, without consequence. So if any of those signs inconveniences me, I'll just move it, and that's it.
So I'll tell you another fire department story. Fire hydrants are often not used to fight fires. In fact, most often are not used to fight fires. In fact, very rarely, on very specific circumstances, in very specific areas, are they ever even used to fight fires. Of all the fire hydrants that you see in your life, none of them are being used to fight a fire. So why couldn't you park in front of one for a few moments? Well, one day, I had the opportunity to send an axe through a man's BMW, through his driver's side window and through his passenger side window, such that I could run a 5-inch hose from the truck to the hydrant. And it was fucking glorious. It was things you hear about on TV. It was a fucking movie scene. I remember I was brand new, and my captain said, "Ayoub, break that window with the axe. We're putting the hose through." And I went, "Really?" And he went, "Yup." And I went, "Yes." And I fucking broke that window, and we put the hose through. And then the guy showed up later. And he complained to us about us ruining his car. And I remember, because I was the new guy and I wasn't in the building at the time, I remember he came to me and he started yelling at me because I was standing by the hydrant. And I just went like this. And I pointed at the burning building. And I said, no one cares about your car. And it was glorious. So you could probably move those signs every time. But one time, you might end up with a dump truck on your front lawn.
Okay, and that's fine.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Let that be the status quo. Let it be that you can park in front of a fire hydrant and just know that there's a risk.
No, that's dumb.
That your windows will get broken.
Moving your sign is a better example. Parking in front of the hydrant is dumb because it took us an extra 10 minutes to get that hydrant.
10 minutes?
Yeah. Because now, instead of just being able to connect the hose to the fire hydrant, we've got to send it through the car, and we've got to fucking wedge it in there between the car. It's a 5-inch hose. It takes work. Maybe 10 minutes is too long. I'm exaggerating. But it took longer than it would have. And if it was your house burning down and the fire hydrant took longer to connect to, it would have taken longer to put the fire out. So that's a bad example. You shouldn't be able to park in front of a fire hydrant because even though it's one of my favorite stories to tell of smashing the guy's windows, the selfish fucking prick, it's also a scenario that is detrimental to the community at large. Your sign moving scenario is only really going to be detrimental to you because those fucking guys will roll up on your lawn and they'll dump fucking, 40 pounds of unused concrete right smack in the middle of your driveway and let that shit cure when you're at work. And then when you come home, your driveway's got a giant mound of cured concrete in it, or any other matter of creative thing that they could do. Is that to me, and I get your point, right? Let the status quo be the consequence of my actions impacting me negatively. Or you could have a mild inconvenience for a brief period of your life that really has no major impact on you other than to irritate you for no good reason.
Okay, but see, here's the thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Right? 99% of the time, fire hydrants are not being used to fight fires.
99.9% of the time.
All right? 99.9% of the time, handicapped spaces are left empty because there aren't any handicapped people using them. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Why is the consequence for the 0.1% of the time, why does that outweigh the 99.9% of the time when it's not?
Well, okay, because these two examples that you gave, the 0.1% of the time is a house burning, and the other 0.1%.
No, it's
yes,
not.
I'm
sorry.
Because it is. Because literally
10 seconds is not going to make the difference. Sorry.
You have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
10 seconds is not
It's
going to make
not 10
the
seconds.
difference.
It's more than 10 seconds. And it can make the difference. What if that car was parked in a way where I couldn't have put the hose through the windows because the B-pillars were in the way? And now I couldn't put the hose through. It just so happened that there was a path through the windows. If he had parked another foot forward, I wouldn't have been able to do that because that's not a super bendy fucking hose. You can't bend and move that hose around. What if he had parked so close to the hydrant that there was no space to get the connector on? You're making wild assumptions about things you do not understand. So the 0.1% of the time is a house burning. The other 0.1% of the time is a person who is unable to walk the way that you are able to walk, an extra 10 feet. They need a ramp. They need extra space on the side of their van. And those are the special cases that we account for in our daily lives because we are able, and it's no fucking big deal to park a little farther away. It's just not. And you'll be just fine.
I don't buy your fire hydrant one.
Okay, you're wrong. I can save you the trouble and just tell you that you're wrong. There's numerous circumstances.
Teach me about fire hydrants, right? So fire hydrants, right, have multiple ports, don't they?
They have multiple ports, but only one port can do a 5-inch line. Next question. Those ports face the street because the fire truck is parked on the street, and those hoses, when they're charged, do not bend. The radius on a charged 5-inch pressurized fire hose is fucking forever. You don't make 90-degree bends.
Those side ports, what are they for?
2-inch lines and 3-inch lines.
Okay.
Also,
All right.
in order to
Fair
open
enough.
a fire hydrant, you've got to put a large, long wrench on it, and you've got to spin
Yeah.
it 26 times. And if there's a fucking car in the way, that job is harder or impossible.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I'll
Rationalists
grant you that one.
are good at what they do. We are all rationalists to some degree. We can rationalize shit in our brains and make up a whole fantastical universe of things that do not exist. But there is a real world that exists that we think is simple, but it isn't.
All right. I'll grant you that one. The handicap one, though? Meh.
I mean, so your brother, this guy right here, one day is going to be in a wheelchair. Period. And when that time comes, I would like it very much if an inconsiderate person wouldn't have parked in the handicap space, because that would be the only way I'd be able to park my van and run my ramp out to get my wheelchair down to be able to get to the place I want to get. And I can't do that in a regular parking space because there's not room for my ramp or clearance for my wheelchair to turn around and get between the vehicles.
Are you actually going to be in a wheelchair?
Yeah, we talked about this. I mean, if I make it that far. So the consideration to other humans, right? I used me as the example because I'm right the fuck here. But why the fuck should anybody else have to fucking suffer through that nonsense so you don't have to walk an extra 10 feet? Fuck off. You got legs. Fuck off. You got legs.
You see it so rarely,
big deal.
Though.
So park in front.
You see it
so then
rarely.
Here's the deal. So park in front of a fire
That's
hydrant.
the thing. How many of these
It
wheelchair
does-
people do you see?
Enough.
You go to supermarkets all the time.
Enough.
I go to places all the time.
I see
Every single
enough.
time I go to a place with handicapped parking, I have never seen the reason why it's there.
Sir,
the little blue guy,
again,
the white guy.
I
and
give
blue
you the
thing.
rationalist example. I have seen this numerous times. I know people who require it. My neighbor who lives a quarter mile in that direction requires it. He uses a wheelchair, and he's got a lift that he takes out of his pickup truck, so that way he can take his wheelchair to his driver's side door because he uses hand controls to get around. So, again, you don't know about shit. It's really hard to claim that it's not important. So, you know what? Again, even if you have never seen a handicapped space being utilized in your entire goddamn life, it doesn't fucking matter. Why should people who are in a wheelchair or using a walker, whether they're because they're elderly or because they have an injury or some other disability, why shouldn't they be able to access the building that you can access in the same way through the handicap spaces, the additional clearance, and the ramp?
No, they absolutely should.
That's it. So you shouldn't park in their space, nor should you park in front of a fire hydrant. It is that simple. I mean, you don't have to be.
No, it's not.
It really
it's
is.
not that simple. I'm sorry. It's not that simple.
You feel like you're being
Then
accosted
there's
by the
something-
regulation.
Then there's something wrong with the math. Then there's
There's
something
nothing
wrong
wrong
with
with
the
the
math.
math.
Yeah,
It's the
no, there is.
Sometimes you have to make accounts for the exception.
So make accounts for them.
Done.
But
Handicap,
you've been-
2 or 3 handicap spots in front of a store and a fire hydrant. The one spot on the block you can't park.
Never.
What do you mean never.
Never. What store are you talking about?
You
There's
talking
a-
about?
there's at
Are you
least-
talking about Costco where there's 15, or are you talking about the pizza place where there's 1 or 2?
I'm talking about the Costco and the Target and all
Okay.
those places where there's 15 of them.
And 8 of them might be occupied, or 3 of them might be occupied, or none of them might be occupied. But it doesn't fucking matter even if none of them are occupied, or if they.
What's galling is that when they are occupied, right, and you see the person getting back in their fucking car, they're not handicapped.
They've
got the little
You have
sticker.
no idea what handicap they have. If they've got that tag, you have to assume there's a good reason for it. And you know what? There may be a few people, and I know who they are, who have that tag because of a relative or a friend, and they fucking abuse it because they're cunts. But the vast majority of those people need that tag, and they use it appropriately. And for fuck's sakes, man, you've got 99% of all of the other parking spaces in that fucking Costco parking lot. You need the 15 up front? Fuck you. Suck a dick. One day you might be in a wheelchair. And you know what? You're going to be pissed off when some cunt parks in that fucking handicap spot and you can't make it into the goddamn pizza place. And you got to fucking turn around and go home.
My issue, again, is with the math and it's
What's
with
the
the
math?
abuse.
What's the math? The math is you
The
get
ratio.
you get 99% of the parking spots, they get
The
1%.
math is the ratio.
What's the ratio?
The math is the ratio.
Okay, so give me the ratio. Give me the ratio that's hurting you. How many parking spaces do you get to park in? How many?
It's not the quantity of the
What is it
spaces
then?
that I get to park
What is
in.
it?
It's not the quantity of the spaces that I get to park in. I'm thinking about it. It's the quantity of unused or misused spaces that are handicap spaces.
Okay, so if there's 2 spaces in front of a pizza place, right? Your little shopping center is 2 spaces that are designated for handicap spaces in front of a pizza place.
You're changing the math.
Okay,
on
no,
it
let's
right
go to
now
the. You
because
want to
I'm
go to
not
the
thinking
Costco?
about that. I'm thinking about the
Okay.
Costco. I'm thinking about the Target. I'm
So
thinking
there's
about the
15
fucking Macy's or whatever.
Let's call it 15 handicap spaces in front of the Costco. Okay. When Phil goes to the Costco, he sees nobody in the handicap spaces, and he assumes that there are no handicap people, and therefore these spaces are being wasted.
Phil doesn't go to the Costco once.
Okay.
Phil goes to the Costco multiple times a year.
Okay.
And every time Phil goes, the handicap spaces are empty. Or if the handicap spaces are full, when the person either gets out or gets in the driver's side, right? There's no wheelchair, there's no
Okay.
limp, there's no cane,
So,
there's
let's
nothing.
be clear.
So whatever handicap they
let's be
have
clear.
doesn't affect their mobility.
Handicap spaces are not just for people with wheelchairs. There's lots of different reasons that somebody can have a handicap placard that allows them to park in a handicap space, including not being able to walk properly, but still being able to walk. And the shorter distance makes the difference. Okay. Just like you didn't know the size of the connections on the fire hydrant and the way in which a fire hydrant operated, you do not understand what goes into the requirements and the needs of those who are handicapped because you are not handicapped. And the 10 times in a year, I'll give you 12. Once a month you go to Costco, because who the fuck goes to Costco more? There won't be lots of people. Let's say 52 times a year, your fucking ass goes to Costco. You don't see those parking spots being used. You're fucking there for 40 minutes, 30 minutes. You fucking leave. There's a goddamn 10-hour day of opened Costco that happens when you're not even there. When Phil closes his eyes, the world is still there. How the fuck do you know that the fucking minute you left, 15 people in wheelchairs didn't pull up to Costco?
You would think, though,
You would think what?
with a random sample of my entering and exiting Costco,
You would think
that I would see it.
think with a random sample that no fire hydrant in the history of fire hydrants ever gets used. When was the last time you saw a fire hydrant in operation?
Actually, there was a fire on my block, and it was used.
So
Back when I lived in DC.
So that one time in your entire life, that's a lot of random sampling to get to one. I'll tell you what, give it a few more years. Wait and see until you see that person with a wheelchair getting out of their van at Costco.
I'm still gonna say that at that point there should only be one space or maybe two.
So okay, what happens when
Not
what
15.
happens when a third person in a wheelchair shows up? Seriously. So look, the reason why there are as many spaces of handicap spaces in front of a building as there are is because of some regulations that were written to say, statistically speaking, based upon the size of the store and the number of other parking spots and the people that visit the store in a day or in a week, these are the expected number of handicapped spaces that we need. It doesn't mean that they will all be used. It doesn't mean that they will all ever be filled simultaneously. And it might mean that maybe one of those spaces never gets occupied. Big fucking deal. You got 99% of the spaces in that parking lot.
But I want the one.
Yeah,
that's
I know you do.
closest.
Here, you want to know something? I park the farthest away from any store entrance I ever go to.
Actually, I usually do the same.
So then,
Seriously.
so then, suck a dick, guy. It doesn't matter. You're fine. It doesn't matter. You feel like you're being infringed upon by some unknown, mysterious thing.
No. I'm trying to understand why it grates on me so.
That's the question.
Because it does. Because it does.
That's the real question.
And I'm certainly not alone in that.
No.
That's for sure.
No, God, no.
I'm not the only one that it grates
No.
on. I certainly don't feel entitled to those spots.
Okay.
I always park far away anyway.
So then it doesn't...
Because there's less traffic.
Doesn't even
Because
impact
everybody's
you.
trying to find a spot
Yeah.
close up. So I'm like, fuck this. I can walk.
Exactly.
I park far
Right.
away. And that's it.
I can walk. I'll park far away.
But there's something galling about seeing them go unused or seeing them used by people who don't appear to have any issue with walking.
You appear to have an issue with walking, you can throw that one out of your brain. You don't have a fucking clue. Them being unused is a different story. You got to wonder why that one. No, because we already established you didn't know how a fire hydrant worked. You don't know how handicapped people work. So throw that one away.
Wait a second. I'm watching the person get out of their fucking car,
what are you watching?
Close their door, and walk to the goddamn store.
And how do you know?
They're not limping. They don't have a cane. They don't have a wheelchair. Nothing.
Let me ask you a question.
They're not blind.
Did you see me limp when we were together?
No.
Okay. Do you know that I sometimes limp depending upon how far I have to walk?
No.
Do you know that it depends not only on how far I have to walk, but on the day? I can go weeks.
When you say it depends on the day,
I can go weeks without.
You mean it's random?
It's random. I can go weeks without limping, and then on some days it's serious.
Really?
Yep. Things you don't know about the way the world works.
You go weeks without limping, and then it
sometimes I go weeks with limping, so it's highly variable. Yeah,
and that's what, because the signals aren't getting there or something.
Yeah. Sometimes the nerves aren't nerving.
Huh.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ayoub podcast. I'm going to go eat my dinner, and I'm going to go to bed early because I'm an old man. See you next time.
Who limps?
Who limps? Sometimes.